And oftentimes we allow that when in fact they have no business giving you that type of counsel. They have no business giving you that type of opinion. And all of a sudden, right, you start taking these opinions because you've opened the door. You essentially have fortified your entire castle, but forgot to secure one door. All right. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. Thank you for joining me today. We have a much smaller group today. We have 2 classes going on right now at HQ. We just finished off of Carla's lecture, and I'm coming in on a different day. So I do appreciate you coming, and hopefully those that couldn't make it today are able to replay this. And that's the whole intention of this, right? To be able to come back full circle and be able to just listen to this message and hopefully get the inspiration, the motivation that will keep you consistent. And one thing that I've learned throughout the years is that, it's if we're always dependent on motivation to take action, it's going to be short-lived. And I've been on this game now about how to stay consistent with what I do. And although I'm not always perfect, I'm much greater than who I used to be, right? And that takes something that I think we all need to do, is to take appreciation of the journey we have taken on, but not to be satisfied with it, right? Because I've also been in that position where I say, well, it's much better. I'm a bit better husband than I used to be, as opposed to saying, how much greater can I be, right? And, what I've done in my marriage has been something that I never thought I could be at. And, Carla and I have been pushing at a very high level here over the last couple months. She's embarked on a new journey, going back to school, getting her bachelor's in ministry. I've taken on the different projects, and I got to tell you, and this is where I'll be honest with you, it's been a rough transition for us. And we realize that it is a transition, right? Transition is the place of uncertainty. Okay, a transition is like you're pushing the envelope, and you're becoming better, but there's always this uncertainty that comes with it. Like everything is up for grabs, everything is up in the air. Like things could actually break, right? And that's what it feels like when you're in the midst of this. And for Carla and I mean, we've been pushing really, really hard, even in the last 90 days, the last 60 days, the last 30 days. It seems like we're pushing harder and harder. And there's this going from what we used to have to now going to something bigger always takes this process of being broken, of being challenged, of collisions happening to a point where it feels like, man, is this the end? And it's an insane feeling as you're breaking down the old, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're breaking down who we were as a husband and wife just 3 months ago, just 6 months ago, and transitioning to someone bigger. And it also happens in business. As you start applying more systems, as you become more knowledgeable, what you were doing now seems elementary. And even though it may be elementary, to break that process down, there's this place of like uncertainty. What if this new thing that I'm applying doesn't work? What about this new employee that I hired doesn't work? What about these new skill sets that I'm spending hours upon hours, sleepless nights, learning about, putting other things on the back burner? What if it doesn't work out? Right? And I've been in that place many times where I'm stepping away from real estate in general and leaning in to becoming a brokerage owner. There's this place of uncertainty where all of a sudden everything's up for grabs. Like I'm not even clear where I want to go. At least that's what I made myself believe. Because oftentimes when we're real and raw and we talk about our experiences, we also express them to other people. And when you do that, it's almost like you're giving them permission to now tell you what they think based on their own experiences, which is never going to align 100%, right? When you give yourself that and express yourself to others, you're almost opening the door to your sanctuary. Your sanctuary is your mind and your heart. And oftentimes we allow that when in fact they have no business giving you that type of counsel. They have no business giving you that type of opinion. And all of a sudden, right, you start taking these opinions because you've opened the door. You essentially have fortified your entire castle, but forgot to secure one door. And sometimes that creates this doubt now of the path you should be taking. Because they'll say opinions like, you're working so hard. Isn't that affecting your marriage? I see you guys not connected there. Are you guys okay? You know, you're not spending enough time with your kids. All these things are meant to essentially slow you down from where you're supposed to go, right? That's the uncertainty. Because individuals will come in with their opinions about how you should do things, when in fact, they're not even moving at your level. You're taking opinions from someone that's not even moving at your level, and all of a sudden, their opinions start impeding on your certainty. And you're like, well, maybe I'm not a good husband. Maybe I'm not a good father. Maybe I am working too much. And understand that when your vision is clear, you won't steer from your mission. And it's so important to fortify your castle, to constantly put it under lock and key. Make sure the guards are watching over your kingdom, right? Make sure that everything is fortified. Make sure that the drawbridge is up, that the alligators are nice and healthy in the moat. And everyone's own agendas start impeding on yours if you don't. And I got to be honest, we started taking opinions with our marriage. And almost there was a frustration that was brewing within. There was this kind of we started questioning everything of what we've had here for the last 20 plus years. Where now we're questioning what we were so certain about what worked for us. How is it that now we kept our eyes off the one door of our kingdom? And that often happens when you just are real and raw, right? Maybe you just want to express your path, your experiences, and that automatically opens you up in their eyes for them to now counsel you, to now give you advice on what you should or shouldn't do. When in fact, it's unless they're moving at your speed, all that is an opinion that doesn't really correlate to your own situation. So to me, it's I got to be mindful of who I allow to give me these opinions, because it starts seeping in. And I start questioning, and I become less certain. Everything becomes cloudy, right? Because they don't understand what it takes to run a business, but you do. But yet you're hearing them. Now you're feeling guilty and shame and frustration as a means to satisfy what they think a businessman or a businesswoman should be, based on what they think a father and a husband should be, or a mother and a wife should be. And then what does that do? Now it creates a war within the walls of your kingdom. Because now you're no longer working together with your spouse. You're no longer working together with your agenda to build something great. Now you're listening to different people imposing essentially their will upon you. And understand that every time you push forward to build something greater, just because there's that friction does not mean that it's falling apart. But if you allow the wrong people to give you opinions that's up in the air, that transition period, all of a sudden, that's all you can think about, that it is falling apart. And that the path you're taking maybe wasn't the right path to take on to begin with. When you go through that transition period, it's more important to be more unified within your relationships than ever, with your certainty, and understand that that's a very vulnerable place to be in. The transition phase is a very vulnerable place to be in. And you got to protect your walls. And sometimes we forget. We assume, I remember I put the latch on. Like nothing's getting through. But it's better to double check. It's better to have those conversations with your spouse. It's better to go back to your targets and realize this is the path you chose. This was what it was in your heart and soul. And in order to get there, it's going to require some sacrifices, which to some may feel like you're sacrificing your family, your marriage, your happiness. That's their interpretation. But they don't understand what's in your soul, what's in your heart. And what's great comes with great difficulties. And that's the reminder, and that's the vision you have to constantly look at. Because if they catch you in that vulnerable place, you're going to steer away from your big mission. And for many, they end up quitting. When just around the corner was something greater. Right? It's a force that comes in. And there's going to be collision. But from that is a cloud of prosperity. It's much bigger, right? When there's a collision, the top part of it is much greater. It's like the atomic bomb. Small in its nature, but the cloud was much bigger. And I'm hearing some feedback over here. So you got to understand this as you start pushing the envelope, as your marriage is being challenged to the core, as your conviction is being challenged to the core, you got to make sure that you reinforce the walls within your own castle, your own kingdom. Because it's real easy for people to sneak in and tell you everything that you're doing is wrong. Tell you that the way you're pushing is wrong. And that the way you're parenting is wrong. And that your marriage is wrong. And that's in a very vulnerable, regardless of how powerful you become. When you leave that door open, you allow anyone now to impede and make you question everything about what you're doing. So understand, as you push the envelope, there's going to be these vulnerabilities. And it almost feels like it's all going to fall apart. But it's not. It's just a transition as you're letting go of the old and becoming the new. And as we take on all these different projects, it's pushed me to the core. But now coming out on the other side, I'm feeling more powerful than ever. As we're pushing the envelope, not only in business, but what's in my soul, in my marriage as a parent, firing all cylinders. And as you go through that transition, sometimes it's hard to keep up with every one of them. Sometimes your marriage may take a back seat, but it doesn't mean it's going to remain there. And for some, the business has taken a back seat for a long time, trying to repair the marriage or trying to repair the issues you've had with your health or substance abuse or whatever it may be. But what I'm saying is this awareness that you now have allows you to get through it. But this awareness also needs to bring you this vision of like, okay, I got to make sure that I got the right people around me. And just because you tell your story doesn't mean now anyone can tell you how you should run your life. And that's what I want you to think about this week. I want you to think about where you're allowing others to impede on your progression. And sometimes it could be your own spouse, unfortunately. Sometimes it's the people you love most. And it's up to you to decide, are they qualified to give you that type of opinion? Are they qualified? Are they pushing at the level you're pushing? There's only a select few of individuals that I allow. Now, over the last couple months, I've allowed more people than I typically have, and I realized, like, what am I doing? Why am I getting these seeds of doubt in my marriage, in my business? Where do these doubt come from as a parent? Oh, okay. I left this door open over here. And this other person who hasn't been pushing at the level that I have planted a seed of doubt in my mind. And now I'm like, maybe my marriage is not what it should be. Maybe I'm not as good as a parent as I need to be. Maybe I'm not moving fast enough in business. Maybe I am sacrificing too much time in the business, which is causing issues in my marriage. No, I just let the wrong people give me their opinions. You got to understand that when you're clear about where you want to go, you won't allow anyone just to come in and steer you away from that. And it's your job to make sure that you've reinforced the walls of your castle, of your kingdom. That through those phases of vulnerability, that somebody doesn't come in to try to knock you off your path. It's just a transition, and the transitions are tough. They're painful. You're trying to let go of the old to become the new. Realize this, that if you decide to make a decision, it's yours to make, and it's yours to keep. Don't just allow anyone to come in and try to throw you off of that with their rationale. You do it for you. You do it because it makes you feel powerful. And you do it knowing that, hey, I got to build every aspect of my life the same way. Reinforce it. I wrote something down here, and I'm going to go ahead and read it to you, and then we're going to wrap it up. It's going to be a short one today, guys. And if anything's resonating with you, please let me know. And I see a couple comments here, and I will be reading through those. Life is so good that I dwell on the one thing that is not working. I dwell on the things that I don't have. And when I do that, I disregard the man I have become. Not everyone can handle the role that I am in. Not everyone can build what I have built. The person I am today is skilled and processed. I can take on a lot because I know a lot. I am forged to win. All of this is learning a new process and techniques to increase my skill set, to increase my mindset, my overall capacity to deliver a high level for my family, for myself, and for the people that I impact every single day. Don't dwell on the fact that there is still so much on the table. Be excited that there is still so much left on the table. I'm going to read that again. Don't dwell on the fact that there's still so much to handle right on the table. Be excited that there is so much left on the table. The future is bright. God is in my soul. I will prevail. I mean, when I write these early on in the morning, and I love going back to it because it feels like I'm in this state of mind where I just allow these words to pour through me, right? I consistently type over 30,000 words every week. I have this app called Grammarly, which I would encourage you to get. And what it does is does a word count anytime you journal. And I'm 30 to 40,000 every week. And every week I'm processing my thoughts. I'm processing how I can improve. And I realize that, you know, as we have our eyes on growth, we also have to look back and around us to make sure we're fortified, to make sure that things will not fall apart. And even though things may be tough in marriage, it doesn't mean it's all going to fall apart. But when somebody's yapping at your ear about how your wife should be or your husband should be, you're giving them more access than they deserve. Because only you know the true nature of your marriage. Only you know the true nature of your business, your relationship with your kids. Only you know that. But as you're going through this transition, look around. Make sure you're fortified from the wrong opinions, because they will take you down this slippery slope where you will begin to question everything about your life. And when you do that, you're at a standstill. You're no longer moving forward. And in that transition phase where it feels like it's going to fall apart is where you have to stay more focused to realize the greater result. But instead, as many people are trying to transition to someone greater, they're distracted by all the voices and all the opinions. So then we retract and go back to what and who we used to be, not realizing that that was a test to reinforce the marriage, to reinforce the business, to reinforce the vision. Too much time in that place, in that transition place. And the more time you spend there, the more likely you are to fall apart, to grow resentment and frustration, to grow anger and shame and entitlement. Anything you want, anything that is great is gonna break you to the core. But it doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It's a transition. And once you get over that hump, guess what? There's another level beyond that, which is going to require another transition. So as you're climbing up this mountain, you can't look back all the way back and look and ask the opinions of someone who hasn't even had the courage to take the first step. They're not pushing at the level you're pushing. They're not moving at the level you're moving or making decisions that you've made, the sacrifices that you've taken on. And again, just because we have labels on these individuals as family, as mom, as dad, as my best friend, doesn't mean that they can ever counsel you in the way you could counsel yourself. They haven't pushed the envelope like you have. So you got to protect the walls, right? This is protecting your walls. It's like shutting them out. The doors are your ears. You got to understand that. The doors to your kingdom, the doors to your castle are your ears. And there's no one guarding that. So for those of you that are pushing and it's taken your marriage to the brink of divorce or starting to question if you should even be there. Like, close the doors to everybody else's opinion and have that one-on-one. Have that conversation that needs to be had. Have that crucial conversation and ask each other, what do you want? What do you want for you? What do you want for us? And avoiding these conversations is a distraction. You cannot get the clarity you need for your business, for your overall sense of purpose and drive. You won't be able to get that. So audit those that you're allowing with this incredible kingdom you've created. Have pride in that, because you did create something bigger. You've pushed the envelope. You've sacrificed more than you're giving yourself credit for. You've grown tremendously. Don't allow others to drudge up the past in the forms to keep you there. Don't allow others to drudge up the past as a form to keep you there. So if your kingdom does involve your marriage and your kids, then reinforce that. And for some, it means that it doesn't involve the marriage anymore. It just involves you. And that's okay too. But don't take on the opinions of others to make that decision. It's always been on you, and you know exactly what to do. So as Carla and I are facing these challenges with business, and it's like, it's challenging our marriage to the core. It's like, man, listening to the wrong opinions. Hey, man, she should be more like this. And hey, Carla, he should be more like this. And you're like, you're right. She should. All of a sudden, there's this sense of entitlement, right? Of anger, frustration. It's like, no, how about I just go speak to her? How about she just come and speak to me? How about we shut off the noise and realize to get to even this point took a lot of courage, took a lot of sacrifices. And you're not in a place right now to give up on all of that, even with your business. Don't let people guilt you. Don't let people tell you how you should run your life. Get clear and don't steer. Explain the past beliefs, embarking on new ones, trusting your instincts. And that's exactly it, Jermaine, right? It's those instincts. We all have it. But we lose that confidence, again, when we're seeking the quick advice or the quick result. Like, your heart always knows. And through this journaling process, there's a question there that says, what does your mind tell you about this situation? And what my mind tells me is oftentimes really magnified of the negativity I already have in my mind, right? It's all her fault. It's all because of this. It's all because of the business. It's all because of this employer or that person. Or it really just magnifies. It's just a thought of negativity, and it's just magnified, echoed in our brain. And then there's another question right after that says, what does your heart tell you? And you'll be surprised how radically different the thought in your mind and what your heart tells you are. And it's a shift. It's a flip. Like, my wife is not here to stumble me. She's here to challenge me. And my rationale that I'm doing better than most is not good enough. Because then there's a comparison of myself to others when the comparison should be of the person I can be. Because I could sit on that in my business. Well, I'm better than most. I'm more successful than most. Or I can compare it to the person I need to be. And that requires a more skilled person, a more committed person, a convicted person, a conviction within. So settling on those and on that baseline, right? Settling on that baseline means you're just wanting to settle. And when you compare yourself to others, that's exactly what happens. So my excuse, I'm better than most, or I'm doing more than others. I've made it further in business. I'm a better husband than most in my mind, right? That's where we make a mistake. Because that's the wrong comparison. All right, Jasenia, people will always have opinions of what you should and should not do. But the fact of the matter is their opinions do not pay my bills, do not support your lifestyle. And that's it. And, we've had to go through a journey, Jasenia, of like even creating distance with my own parents, her siblings, my siblings, my family, because we needed to find each other to reinforce this. But of course, they're family. You don't want to keep that distance away forever. And slowly but surely, as we let them in, we also let their opinions in. And we got to be able to guard the doors, right? Which is what goes in here, through our ears. So yeah, you're very right. They don't pay your bills. They don't understand the challenges or the nuances of your marriage or your relationship with your kids. It's like you just got to do what's right for you, just like I do. And some people may think that we're not good parents, right? Just like they may think that you're not, and everyone listening here. But at the end of the day, a good parent always shows through action and not just through words. And they're watching dad push, and they're watching mom push, and they're watching this union behind closed doors of what it truly is. It's based on love. It's based on admiration. But when we allow others, all of a sudden it's resentment and entitlement. So take this time to reinforce those walls. Who do we need to push out? Doesn't mean we got to stop loving them. We just got to push them out. They're taking too much time in our minds and our souls. Guys, I want to thank you again for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. I know we're a day late here, but not $1 short. I hope that you got all that you needed from this. I know I was able to get a few things off my chest and, just proceed. So stay clear, okay? And knowing that these transition periods are a very vulnerable place to be in. But don't question your path. Don't question what your heart told you to do. So guys, thank you again for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. I will talk to you soon. Bye now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.